This is the podcast Wide Open Spaces with Elise, Cracked Open, Season 7, where we get raw, edgy, and a little on the wild side. Go to all my social media, like, love, and follow. Go to eliselitwin.com or wideopenspaceswithelise.com. Now let's get raw, a little bit edgy, and let's dive deep into our emotions. This is episode number 195. Losing your mom is life altering. I've been away for a while now, and I feel bad and I apologize if you are a regular listener. Life's been tough. Now, yes, I'm a therapist, and yes, I'm on season 7 of my podcast, where I talk about all things mental health, personal struggles that we go through in life. But I got derailed. Big time did I get derailed. And that's why there's been this big gap. And at first, I beat myself up for this big gap. Letting my listeners down, letting myself down, the people who are excited when they hear I have a new episode of a podcast, or even when I'm introducing myself to people and I say I'm a podcaster, because I really haven't been for the past few months or so, if I'm being totally honest. But it's okay. It's okay to need to take a break in things that are maybe a responsibility of ours, maybe a leisure activity of yours, maybe things with friends or family. It's okay as long as it has a beginning, a middle, and then a new beginning. And I've kind of come to that point of the new beginning part of it, or wanting it or needing it. I don't know. So before I can move on, I know if you listen to the first episode 194 of season 7, I had a guest on and I said I was going to do guests, and I am. But I think before I can do guests, where I'm having my guests come in and talk about how they've been cracked open, good, bad, ugly, life-altering experiences, good, positive life-altering experiences, sad, depressing life-altering experiences, or just something monumental that cracked a person open, I need to talk about what's cracked me open in a deep way that I never expected it would happen like this. I'm doing video now, so you can go to my YouTube and watch me. I'm very uncomfortable with it, but I'm trying to do this new me after the loss of my mom. And so this was the next step. All of me, who I am, from head to toe. And so I've been derailed, literally derailed. I've gone to therapy. I've talked to friends. I've talked to family. I write in a book. I do all the things you're supposed to do when you're grieving. But they don't seem to be working in the way that I would have thought they would have as a therapist. And I think one of the most eye-opening experiences as a therapist is when you actually go through something that you've discussed with your clients or you've worked through with your clients. And this is one of them. I don't have either of my parents anymore. I feel like I'm an orphan, to be honest. I mean, that's the right terminology, because you don't have your parents to lean on, to go to. And yes, I understand it's different than being orphaned as an infant or a young child. I do understand that. But the premise is the same. And the feelings are the same. And the loss or the emptiness or the void is there in a different way as an adult or young adult. I mean, people lose their parents at all different ages. Losing my mom was something very different than losing my dad. I didn't love my dad any less. I didn't care about my dad any less. I didn't need him in my life any less. But it was different. And sometimes I feel a little guilty about that. Like, why is my grief different with my mom than my dad? And it's something that I struggle with. Do you struggle with that? And I've done a lot of soul searching to try to figure that out. And I really understand it now. I really do. Our mothers give birth to us. We begin in their stomachs. They go through whatever it is to give birth to us, the whole experience of giving life. And of course, your father or the biological father, whatever it is part of that. But there's something about the connection, the physical connection between a mother and their child. I'm a mom of two, so I understand that from the mom's perspective. My mom and I had a funny kind of relationship, especially when I was a teenager. She pissed me off to no end, to be completely honest. We were very different people, my mom and I. We saw things very differently. We responded to things very differently. And so as a teenager, you know how that goes, right? So there was a lot of interventions by my dad of why don't you get along with your mom? And to my mom, why are you frustrated with Elise and things like that? And silly little remedies at the time to try to make the relationship better. And I have to be honest, once I went off to college and we had that little bit of space, it was good. It really was. You don't realize how big of a fan your mom is of you until they're gone. All those like little things that she used to do. Sometimes they would annoy the fuck out of me. And sometimes I'd be, that's cute and that's sweet. And sometimes now I just miss it. And so I feel broken. I feel that the day she took her last breath is the day that Elise, the way she was, no longer existed. And these are the things that I've come to have these epiphanies or this understanding of the grief of losing your main primary parent if your parents are divorced, if it's your mom or your dad, whoever raised you the most, that primary parent. My dad traveled, that was his job, he was a salesman. So ultimately my mom by default became that primary parent. And of course, after my dad passed away, she was my primary parent who lived with me after my dad passed away. Yeah, that made it all the more complicated for me in my loss, in my grief, because I saw her every day. I heard her every day come down the hallway. I heard her making her breakfast every morning and making the dogs food for lunch and dinner. And she'd come in real quietly wherever I was, not to scare me, call my name out before I saw her. Those little weird things. She had loud sneezes and she didn't hear well, so she was kind of noisy when I would ask her to be quiet if I was working. And just all these weird things now that I miss. And I have these If you've lost a parent or someone really close to you, even a pet, I had this with my pets years ago, you hear phantom noises as if you think you hear them or smell them or they make a noise. Sometimes I think I hear my mom making that loud sneeze. It's kind of weird. And then I go, oh, yeah, she's not here. So the grief constantly is being poked. The bear is constantly being poked. Sometimes I'm doing really well. Days will go by. Oh, I think about her every day, but I mean, sad days don't always happen every single day like they did in the beginning. I've even become the person whose other people's that I know's parents have passed since my mom, and kind of the word of wisdom person, the honesty that comes with that, because not everybody is honest or can understand. Feeling broken, feeling a sadness that I believe never goes away. My mom grew up with both her parents. My grandma, Nana, we called her, loved her core family, but really didn't care for anybody else. And she made that quite known. When she was with her core family, that was it. She wasn't super affectionate. She was in her actions, showing us how much she loved us. But it wasn't like hugs and kisses. But my pop, her husband, he was one of the most affectionate people I've ever met in my entire life. Giving, caring, hugs, kisses, notes, just things like that. And so when he passed away unexpectedly, I knew I could understand my mom was grieving, but what I never really fully got years later is how out of nowhere she'd start to cry. She'd go, I miss Pop. And it was hard for me to connect with that feeling, connect with her feelings. And I'll be honest, I probably wasn't the warmest. I wasn't mean or anything, but I just kind of looked at her and said, I'm sorry, and really just didn't know how to connect and didn't understand that, yes, if you're sitting and you're purposely thinking about someone who's gone, you're going to feel sad. But how out of nowhere, sadness would take over her. Shit, I wish I could tell her I understand now. Because it just does. It just comes from nowhere, from nothing. Something in a movie, something on the radio, something somebody says. A drawer that you open and you see something that she put, hoping or planning on using in the future, like a silly bag of rice. Those are the moments, and I understand. You're probably looking at me if you're watching this or listening, going, why is she doing this? I'll tell you why. Because I really didn't have anybody to talk to understand, or really got me, because my mom lived with me. And not that that makes anybody's grief any less, it just adds another layer to it. And I want to use my learning experience and my pain and my understanding now to help others. So that you know the things you're feeling and going through are okay. They're normal, they're real. The post traumatic stress after whatever happened leading up to that loved one's passing stays with you. Sounds bring me right back to that hospice room and the visions of my mom and the things that went on in there, which are private. and I can't avoid them. And they're just there. And I have to work through it and I have to let it happen. If I'm in a public situation, I do a thought stopper. Not now, Elise. Not now. Stop. Or if I'm out with people, I've learned to say, can we change the subject? This is making me sad. To avoid that whole scene that I've done so many times since she's passed in public and have to walk out of a restaurant or a store or whatever. The thoughts are a hard part for me, and not everybody has this opportunity or has had these conversations with their parents. But I knew how much my mom feared death. And I knew how much she wanted to live and see things. Because she told me. And because she didn't have that closure to really know what was happening to her, it's like a wound for me. Because I know. You talk to people who tell you they're okay when my time has come. A friend's mom I spoke to recently was so helpful to me. And she was with her daughter too. And she said, you know, when that happens to me, whether it happens like how it happened to my mom, or you're not aware, or you are, she said, I'll be okay. I lived my life. I'll be okay. And she said to me that your mom would have said the same thing. As much as she loved life and being with her family and her grandkids, she would say that. And that was so healing for me to hear that from another mom. It's painful. It's hard. It's life altering. And all I can really tell you is to feel. Let the feelings happen. Try to understand them, which is really the biggest pointer or idea or thought that I can give you. Me talking about, knowing what my mom, how much she wanted to live, etc. I didn't understand that at first. And those are things that I've worked through and come to understand as part of my grief. And understanding that it wasn't in my power just because she was in my home and we really were her, immediate family and her caretaker. Not that she needed a lot of care because she was pretty good on her own, but emotional caretaker. That there was nothing I could do. It was out of my hands. And I did everything, and my family did everything that was best for her. And in the end, there was decisions that had to be made. And a lot of us have made those decisions with family members, our pets even. It's just not a decision that anybody ever wants to make, but you know that it's the right decision. And so losing your mom is life altering. And I say to people, well, the minute she took her last breath, the old Elise died with her. And I truly believe that because this was May and now we're in December. And I am not the same fucking person. I'm just not. And I never will be. I did things to mark that experience of not being the same person. I got my nose pierced. I altered my body with tattoos and the nose piercing because that person, when my mom was alive, no longer walks this earth. And so I felt this need to alter myself. And you'll find that if you do research, it's very common that people will do that after they've lost a loved one because they don't feel the same and they feel like they need to not necessarily create, but evolve. You're evolving into something different, the before and the after. And I think the hardest part for me in the after is not being able to pick up the phone and tell her, FaceTime her, what I just did, where I was, what just happened, like gossip from friends or whatever that I know she would love. Those moments fucking suck. They just fucking suck because you get that like, and then you're like, oh yeah, I can't call her. And they suck. And we all have them. And we all go through it. And it just sucks. That's all I can say. So losing your mom is life altering. And I think about my kids watching me lose my mom and knowing eventually they'll go through the same thing. And so I'm making sure that I say things and they know things. Not that my mom did anything wrong, because there is no right or wrong when it's your time, but things for me that I wish I could ask, I kind of want to answer for my kids. And that's part of my coping mechanism, making this map for them to have. Now, even these podcasts will be things that they'll have of me when I'm not here anymore, and my thoughts and my feelings. And that's always a great way to cope, is to video yourself on your phone or whatever. Obviously, you're not a podcaster, but to write your thoughts down, to, audio record yourself. Those can be valuable things to people in the future, especially if you're not somebody who's really comfortable with just openly talking about things. But to have that for them. And it's not a morbid way to think, it's just a realization that I've come to since I lost my mom, because I feel like I lost her like that. My biggest fan, my biggest cheerleader, poof, gone, gone, gone. I try to look through the things that remind me of her to keep my connection with her, because obviously we'll always be connected. I struggle with the thoughts of what the afterlife is. Do I really believe in it? Don't I? Sometimes I'm like, oh, just tell yourself you do because it's more comforting. And then other times I'm like, listen, don't kid yourself. When you take your last breath, you take your last breath. These are the demons and the things that go on up here. And eventually, I guess it'll be whatever in the end for me that I think is the most believable or comforting for me. We all have different beliefs, and everybody's beliefs are valid and come from different orientations and different beginnings or things that they've learned in life. So nobody's right or wrong. It's just what you feel in here and up here. So I'm broken. My life has been altered forever. And all I can do is put one foot in front of the other. Don't go above it. Don't go under it. Don't go around it. But to go through it. And some days are good, and some days fucking suck. And some days I can talk and I can laugh about it. Things that I know she did or would say, or I'll say, oh, grandma loved this, or mom loved this. And those moments are more frequent now than they were, obviously, as time has passed. And, I've gone through my birthday and my most favorite holiday, Thanksgiving, without my mom. So those milestones are always the hardest. The first of every holiday or monumental events in your life are always the hardest. Everybody knows that. That's just a common grief expectation. But what I didn't expect to feel was the connection that was lost. Like, when you're born, they cut the umbilical cord. So you've depended on this woman for your life support, your nutrients, your oxygen, the vitamins, everything you put into your body to nurture this baby to be born. And when the baby comes out of the womb, the umbilical cord is cut, and now this baby survives on its own, with help, of course. But does that umbilical cord really ever get cut? And that's a whole other topic with enabling and all that stuff and helicopter moms and whatever. But I mean, theoretically, is there always a part of us that has that invisible umbilical cord attached to our mothers? And I truly believe that I did. I felt so independent and so different than my mom and made so many different types of decisions than my mom. It was much more adventurous and took risks much more than she ever did. And that's okay. That was her choice. But I felt like I was so different than when I started to feel this, like my umbilical cord had just been cut. I didn't realize how deep that connection was. So deep, so powerful. It's almost like for a moment, I stopped breathing. Like I had died too. And when I took that next breath, it was the first breath that I was really on my own. And that can be overwhelming if you understand it, what's really going on. And it took me past the initial grief where I really started to dive deep into why do I feel this way, this thing that's missing, this space, this void, and it was completely severed. The connection, the physical connection, the looks she'd give me, the kisses on my arms that she'd give me, the cute messages she would leave me, or little notes she would leave me, or texting me, letting me know where she was when she was out and about and when she'd be coming home, and did I need anything from Costco? Silly things. And so losing your mom is completely and utterly life altering. And so before I could move on, interviewing different people and talking about what cracked them open, and I did talk a little bit about what's cracked me open, but God, I've let some months go by and I've learned so much in this grief process that I felt that before I could move on, I needed to open up, touch those who are going through the same type of grief. Or maybe their mom died 20 years ago and still relate and feel the things that I'm feeling, because it never goes away. I don't believe it'll ever go away until I take my very, very, very last breath. And that's okay, because I understand that all of it evolved from love. Love of a mother to a daughter and a daughter to a mother. And that's beautiful. And not everybody gets that. But I was lucky enough to get that. And maybe didn't always appreciate it like every kid. And regret some things like every kid will. But I know I did a lot of good too. And I was a good daughter. And she knew that. And she knew how much I loved her. Sometimes I gave her a little bit of tough love, especially after my dad was gone. That was well deserved and well needed. But she understood where it was coming from. It kind of makes me smile thinking about it when she'd call me on it. And so, losing your mom is life altering. And from this point on, well, in episode 196 and beyond, we're going to learn about how people cope with good and bad and ugly and sad and exhilarating and happy things that crack them open, that open up the center of who you are, your heart, for the better or for the worse, and how we come out of that. This is my cracked open for now. There'll be other things in life that will crack me open, happy things, sad things. But this was monumental. And this, sitting here with the microphone, with my name, saying hello to you, is my new beginning of the new me, to come to you every week, no matter if I'm happy or sad or angry or frustrated or feeling lost or I just have too much going on, maybe too much excitement. I'm going to come to you every week. Unless there's unexpected interruption, obviously. Or I go on vacation. I have a little fun somewhere. But that's my commitment to you. How can I interview people about how they've been cracked open if I don't share with you how I've been cracked open? So I'm going to leave you here. I think you've heard enough. You understand me enough from this point on where this podcast will go. And again, hopefully there'll be many a podcast that you can relate to and you can learn from and you can grow from. But they're going to be a little more conversational than they've been in the past. That old kind of a therapy session's going to be shelved a little bit. And we're going to learn from real people that you can probably relate to in one way or another and learn from and grow from. Or maybe just connect and not feel alone when they identify things that you can really understand and feel. Well, so until next week. Thank you for joining me here at Wide Open Spaces with Elise. Remember, like, love, and follow me on any social media or go to my website. Positive thoughts always create positive energy. Tell yourself that. And go out and explore all those wide open spaces in your world. And well, I look forward to seeing you next week. Leave me any comments or thoughts that you might have. And well, just thank you for listening to me and my raw emotions and for being there.